A few years back, I discovered that as a clergy person, I had to become fluent in recognizing online scams and phishing schemes, and more importantly, how to teach everyone in the congregation to recognize and avoid them as well. Here's what would happen. Some grifter or thief with a modicum of internet savvy would create an email address that was not quite mine, but believably close enough. And then they would hack a list of contacts and send messages around to people asking for money, pretending to be me. Blessings, they would write. I am in a meeting at the moment and can't call. Email me back if you can help me out with something. If you respond, the scammer will then say something like, thanks, I have a group of adolescents, cancer patients that I'm helping out, and I need you to go buy me gift cards from Foot Locker. And scratch the backs and tell me the numbers so I can run off with this untraceable information. So I learned to say repeatedly that I would never, ever ask someone to send me gift card information using a fake email address. Ever. I'll never do that. It's not that I would never ask you for some money. It's not that I would never be a part of a conversation to financially support people in need, even adolescent cancer patients. I do talk a lot about helping people and supporting the vulnerable among us and using our money as a reflection of our values and about how important empathy is. It's just that I would never do it with gift cards and a fake email address. It's frustrating to have scammers take advantage of our kindness, our empathy, and our willingness to help others, to take advantage of the trust that has been built in this community. And I want us to continue to be kind and trusting and empathetic, but we also need to stay curious and even a little skeptical. I'm thankful that curiosity and skepticism are considered religious values among us that we hold together. It's part of what helps us stay open and resilient. We live in a world that is constantly pushing us to be fearful of each other, to be on guard against threats, to be vigilant against being taken advantage of or potential dangers. And I want to be curious about sounding a bell like that myself this morning. In the reading, we heard from the beginning of his book, Healing the Heart of Democracy, Parker Palmer warns us that the collapse of our democracy will not happen because the communists or the fascists have taken over, not because of a foreign invader or even because of greed and dishonesty among some elected officials, but because we become fearful of each other, of our differences. Unitarian Universalism as a faith tradition has long held a deep value in honoring the differences among us. We prize our capacity to be together as one people without insisting on a coerced conformity of belief or practice. We have made honoring our differences one of our highest values, the value that allows us to be together. Our diversity is like the prairie. Allow me to explain. Parker Palmer, again, starts one of the early chapters in that book about democracy with the following story. For nearly an hour, he writes, we have been driving the back roads of southern Minnesota, past acre after acre of corn, lined up in orderly, tedious, and mind-numbing rows. As we crested a hill, my friend broke the silence. Check it out. Afloat in the sea of uniformity called American agribusiness was an island of wind-blown grasses and wildflowers, a riot of color and texture to delight the eye. We got out of the car, walked through this patch of prairie my friend had helped restore, dotted with the kind of plants whose names make up a found poem. Wild 4 o'clock, bastard toadflax, Ohio horse mint, prairie Indian plantain. After some silence, my friend spoke again, saying something like this: there are more than 150 species of plants on this prairie, to say nothing of the insects, birds, and mammals they attract. Just as there were before we broke the sod and started farming. It's beautiful, of course, but that's not the whole story. Biodiversity makes an ecosystem more creative, productive, adaptive to change, and resilient in the face of stress. The agribusiness land we've been driving through provides us with food and fuel, but we pay a very steep price for this kind of monoculture. It saps the Earth's vitality and puts the quality and sustainability of our food supply at risk. The prairie, as it once was, a state to which it can be restored, has a lot to teach us about how we need to live. Parker Palmer declares that if our democracy were to collapse, it would be because we have become fearful of one another, of our differences. And conversely, a healthy democracy is like a healthy prairie. The biodiversity of our ecosystem helps us remain resilient and thrive. And yet there are those who claim diversity is destructive. Diversity and differences are used to stoke fear, but that is a distortion of one of our highest values. I suppose one of the arguments against diversity can be echoed by the argument against the biodiversity of the prairie. The prairie does not provide us the corn we demand. The rows and rows of monotonous corn is what fuels our country. We all need food, and the monoculture of corn provides it efficiently. Similarly, the monoculture of white, heteronormative, patriarchal consumerism is also efficient, as if being efficient is the best quality allowed to us. But here we honor our differences. Here we see that differences are good. Here we strive to be more like the prairie. Diversity is one of our best values. In my description this morning, and I discovered on the sign out front this past week, I listed other values as well: hope, tolerance, peace, self-respect, and even love. Consider that list. They're all good values, yes? Let me unpack how they get twisted. The negative side of hope is a kind of naive optimism that does not accept reality. We are in favor of reality around here, after all. A false hope blocks people from accepting what really is. Therefore, hope is naive, and it's for weak people who can't handle reality, right? Tolerance, sure, that's good, but it's always been the weaker version of true acceptance. Tolerance says, I will let you continue unhindered over there. Well, acceptance opens the doors and ushers you in. Tolerance is okay if you're not willing to really do the work of inclusion. Peace is important. I'd be delighted to have more peace around the world. Let's call for a full ceasefire in Gaza and an end to the war in Ukraine. But in saying that, we must acknowledge that peace without justice is too often appeasement. Peace is not enough. Sometimes oppressors need to be challenged and stopped, which is not exactly the same as peace, is it? Let's talk about self-respect. Surely everyone can see that self-respect is a key value for all people. Everybody likes self-respect, right? But let's consider the difficulty of how self-respect can be corrupted into entitlement. Feels like a little bit of a stretch? Maybe, but consider how privilege and ego can narrow a person's perspective so as to think they deserve special treatment when they don't get their way. I know that's not quite what self-respect is really about, but that is the distortion. And if you don't believe me, I'll remind you of the story that Fox News ran 15 years ago saying that Mr. Rogers ruined a generation of our kids with his talk about self-esteem. Their complaint was that he made young people feel entitled when he told them that we are loved just as we are, instead of telling them that we could all stand to put in a little extra hard work and earn our place in society. And love? Let's not forget love. The proposed change to our Article 2 statement about what is Unitarian Universalism shifts us away from the 7 principles, which some of you are fully aware of and in love with, to instead talk about a constellation of values with love at the center. To distort our best values, even love, is to puff up the worst version of them, to imagine how these values are actually terrible things. Even love? Yes, even love, that soft, mushy, touchy-feely, kumbaya, let's all get along love. No, thank you. That's a version of love that has nothing to offer. It asks nothing of you, a version of love that is flaky and weak. We would do better to align ourselves with strong values like the rule of law and free markets, I guess. Deep breath. I refuse the distortion of our values. I am committed to truth and love and hope. I'm open to critiques. I'll listen. I'm more than willing to temper a call for peace so that it aligns with justice. That is a great correction, a worthy conversation. And I have room in my worldview to let the idea of tolerance be the base, the bare minimum, while acceptance is the true goal. I can get behind that, and I will continue to laud our values of empathy and diversity and respect, including self-respect. And love, I will not be dissuaded of the centrality of love. The love to which I am committed is not mushy and soft. When I speak of love, I mean something different from the feeling, from the romantic emotion of love. I mean love as the action, the behavior, the promise. Love as the choice to treat other people in a particular way. That's what I mean by love. And it will not matter to me if other people misunderstand me, even when they do it on purpose. When we say love holds the center, we need not let others define what we mean by that value. This calls to my mind the poem that was found on Mother Teresa's wall at the Children's Home in Calcutta, the one that has the line, "If you are honest and sincere, people may deceive you. Be honest and sincere anyway." The poem attained fame with attribution to Mother Teresa, but she never claimed to have written it. It was written by Kent Keith under the title Paradoxical Commandments, and the sentiment gets at what I am trying to say this morning. People are often unreasonable, irrational, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some unfaithful friend and some genuine enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and sincere, people may deceive you. Be honest and sincere anyway. If you spend what you spend years creating, others could destroy overnight. Create anyway. If you find sincerity and happiness, some may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today will often be forgotten. Do good anyway. Give the best you have, and it will never be enough. Give your best anyway. In the final analysis, it is between you and God. It was never only between you and them. Anyway. In other words, hold on to and stay true to the best values you have, even when others distort them. Stay true to them because you know they are true. And do not worry if my list of the great values does not line up with your list, or the list from the 7 principles, or the new list that the UUA is putting out with love at the center. Because diversity will always be one of our best values. And by our differences, we are made more beautiful and we will find greater resilience. By grace and love, our diversity will help us to thrive. We will be like the prairie and we will grow. Even as forces around us distort our words, whisper fear into our dreams, and threaten to destroy what is precious, we are part of the prairie, my friends. We will not be scammed or fooled or bamboozled into abandoning our best values. Stay curious, even skeptical, my friends. Be not fearful of the differences among us and around us. Love will be our guide, truth our day star, and compassion our constant companion. We will be the prairie. In a world without end, may it be so. Please join in singing